Hi, we're back with another episode. If you can tell from the background, I'm relegated to my original basement and office. I was dog sitting for what felt like 2 weeks, which was closer to 13 days. And it's much easier to be upstairs hanging out with the dog. Now it's much easier to be down here. The cool thing about podcasting, you can kind of do it wherever. And especially with the studio, this is not an ad for, but I just need a webcam. I need decent internet because the Riverside uses, I think, cloud. I don't know. I'm not a tech guy. And then my microphone, which I almost always keep my microphone with me. So, that being said, we are going to get this show back on the road. I promise you, I will try to be more consistent with getting the show on regularly, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Because I know how much you love the show. In the last little bit, I always listen to books. I get a lot of inspiration from books, from other podcasts. Sometimes it's from stuff I see on social media. Sometimes it's from interactions I work with clients. And I want to talk about celebrity gurus and fitness traps and fitness cliches that kind of ruin your results. So I don't want to call out anyone in particular, but the generic guy that we can probably think of is Dr. Oz. If you know who I'm talking about, look up Dr. Oz. And there's a lot of stuff that he would have on his show 10, 15 years ago. My mom was like, oh, you should hear about this. And it's like, even then, as like a late teenager, early 20s, I was like, no, that's not 100% right. Or are you sure about that? And a doctor on TV tells you about these magic berries, how it's the magic pill for weight loss. Yet we still have weight loss as a major health concern, or, not losing weight as the major health concern. And then there's somebody on, Joe Rogan who talks about how he runs 100 miles on zero sleeping and tells you to wake up at 3 a.m. and get after your goals. Right? I'm going to pick on David Goggins here. Loved his book. Nobody in their right state of mind would be a David Goggins. He is probably one in like 10 million, or people are probably like that. And then there's influencers that are like 24, no kids, no responsibilities. Their job is to look good on the internet, and they tell you about drinking celery juice because that's their sponsorship. Right? I'm 31. I don't consider myself an influencer. I work with real people for the last 8 years. I've been working for myself as a trainer. And why am I making podcasts? It's not to become famous as much as it's to educate from my perspective, give out my wisdom. It's also great practice for me to get in front of a camera and talk. It's almost like practicing for public speaking because you never know where that might lead to. And so there's a guru effect. Celebrity doctors, extreme performers, high-level athletes, jacked influencers, best-selling authors, people who do performance at a high level, not just physically, but maybe in their day-to-day, they're CEO, they're charismatic, they're accomplished, they're famous, and we take their word for what it's worth. But it's really not worth that much. We think it's worth a lot, but it's really not. Even doctors, like your general practitioner. I'm not trying to pick on mine. I got a new doctor. He seems okay. He's got a little bit of a gut. Not crazy. I wouldn't say, oh, he's obese, but it's like he doesn't look like he works out. He doesn't have the build of somebody who I would assume regularly strength trains. Because, if I saw that, you'd see a bit more tone in the arm. You'd maybe see them a little bit slender. And he's not, my mom who listens says, well, no, he's not. Next time you go in, like, he's got a little bit of a pooch. That's fine. It's not unhealthy at that level. It's just, how can a doctor who's about health talk so much about medicine or from the lens of our current healthcare system, when in reality, what is healthcare but being reactive medicine? Versus being a trainer is really proactive healthcare, but we don't call it healthcare. I don't think anything is going to be able to replace eating decent, working out regularly, getting your steps in, and getting your sleep in for most problems that most people have most of the time. It's very generalized, but it's really true, right? Most doctors have no business coaching or trying to convince a person to lose 80 pounds, right? Oh, like maybe you should stop eating as much. You don't know that much about this person. You see your doctor for 10 minutes once every like year, if that. Maybe once every 3 months if you're a regular check-in person. And so I just thought it was interesting on this one book where the guy was talking about, oh yeah, if you want to lose weight, and he's talking about SMART goals. It's just such a generic answer. And his book has to do with reading minds. And I was like, what does this have to do with reading minds? And it's not even, it's more like learning body language. I'm just like, this has nothing to do with weight loss because he's talking about habits, but then he uses it as an analogy. Then he's using horrible analogies. And I'm just like, okay, I get it. You're accomplished. I just wouldn't take weight loss advice from you. The classic example of move more, eat less is not very nuanced at all. And credentials do matter, but context does as well. Real world coaching is really what matters. Scope of practice matters. The ability to take science and apply it to normal people matter. And so there can definitely be a brilliant person in their lane. This guy is he's like a magician, body language reader person. I'll describe him like that. And so he's really good at reading people. Stay in your lane. You have no business talking about weight loss. And it was short. It was like maybe a 5-minute area, but it's like, you could have used a better analogy, a different analogy. You could have got your facts right there, but you just kind of mailed it in about that weight loss. And maybe someone's like, oh, I was reading this book about, trying to learn someone's body language better, but I guess it's going to be, that's a great fit tip when it's really not. And so I want to talk about some fitness cliches that might sound amazing in books, podcasts, clips, but they fall apart in real life. And I'm not trying to attack anyone personally, so that's why I'm not saying who that person was. I actually appreciated the book. I liked it a lot. It just made me think, I see that. I'm not trying to attack Dr. Oz, but same general idea. So this advice might not seem bad, but it's very nuanced, and we're going to go into it. Calories don't matter. It's all about your food quality. And that can seem appealing, right? It removes math, it removes guilt, gives people a clear villain, which is quality of food. Instead of dealing with intake, portion control, hunger, and habits, right? The problem is your insulin and your cortisol and seed oils. While those can be a marker, it is calories in versus calories out. Yet that can still be more complicated. So both are true. Calories in versus calories out does matter, but quality of food also does matter. There's both. It's a nuance, right? Hormones absolutely matter, right? The quality of your food absolutely matters. It's going to affect your hunger, your energy, recovery, your water retention, your food cravings. But the cliche can become misleading to people to use as excuses or crutches. Or, oh, I don't need to count calories, I just have to eat healthy. Okay, well, what's your definition of healthy then? And everyone's going to have a different definition of eating healthy. And do you truly eat healthy? And again, food quality does influence our hormones to some degree. And it can influence a bunch of other things to some degree. It can even influence how easy it is to stay into a calorie deficit. But it does not erase the reality of a calorie budget, which is very important to follow. If you eat less than what your body burns, you will lose weight. That doesn't mean it's body fat, you will lose weight. It could be muscle mass. Because if you're not eating protein, you might lose that, especially if you're not working out. Same thing, if you overeat and you're in a surplus, if you're strength training, you have proteins high, guess what? You'll gain weight, but it should be mostly muscle. And so is that really a bad thing? And so the quality of your food can dictate that. Your calorie intake dictates your weight. Your macros dictate your body composition, and your macros dictate how you feel. That's a really easy way to think about it. It's more complicated, but that's a better approach than, calories don't matter. People who claim calories are outdated science, people who insist that one hormone explains all fat gain, they're just trying to sell a magic protocol. Carnivore is a really good example here. My brother, who's on it, will say, and I would disagree with him, I'm going to do an impression of him. If people just ate meat, they wouldn't get fat because the meat tells you when you're full or not. It's like there's many people in the world who don't just eat meat, who are not fat at all, who are actually absolutely jacked, and yeah, they eat carbs. Simple as that. And so it's more nuanced. Again, guess what? He is not a health expert. He is just a carnivore enthusiast at best. Not trying to pick on him. But people who cut out carbs, they might lose 8 pounds in a week. It's mostly that they've lost glycogen in water, right? People who claim that they eat healthy might be consuming extra calories through trail mix, nut butters, smoothies, oils, and clean snacks. Clean in quotation marks, right? The influencer who says calories don't matter while staying lean through appetite control, high activity, and careful food selection without admitting it. And they're not counting calories, but they're doing a good job of at least keeping it relatively low, right? And so our language matters when we're working with clients, and it is nuanced. Now, just eat clean kind of is in the same approach. It's appealing, right? It's simple, it's pure, seems disciplined, it seems morally good. Just eat clean. What does clean mean? Right? There's no definition of what eating clean means. Generally speaking, they mean whole foods. Even then, you could eat whole foods and still overeat. Maybe it means eating organic. Maybe it means being gluten-free. Maybe it means no sugar. When eating clean, is honey clean? Maple syrup, those are relatively whole food. It's like one ingredient. And so it's a very vague rule that creates stress without clarity. Most people do better when most of their diet comes from minimally processed foods and nutrient-dense foods, but having an all or nothing mindset can definitely backfire, right? So who's actually qualified to help us with food? I would say dietitians, nutritionists, and even then they might be a little outdated. I would question that because the new food guide has changed. We haven't changed. Why has our food guide changed? Our understanding of it changes. And guess what? In 10 to 20 years, I bet you it's going to change again. Using them, but also with some common sense, like, is this an actual food? Not, is it Cinnamon Toast Crunch? Is that an actual food? Is it? Right? A steak, that's actual food. Right? Yogurt, that's actual food. So, and then obviously taking out the good and bad foods, as sometimes that can lead to relationships with food that we don't necessarily want. And then a lot of people, they eat clean all week, and then they blow up Saturday night, and then they wonder what's going on. Versus if they just indulge a little bit throughout the week, they might not have that massive blow up every Saturday night when they go out for drinks. And so the best nutrition plan is usually the one that the person can repeat while they're under stress, travel, around kids, holidays, where most of the time they're hitting their protein, hitting their fiber. Those are easy rules. Eating mostly real foods, whole foods most of the time. And it's a journey of learning what you should and shouldn't put in your body and connecting the dots. How do you feel when you put that into your body? It's fairly simple there. Now, there's another one. This has to do more with training. No pain, no gain. Train harder. Now, sometimes some of you probably actually do need to train harder, but in reality, we don't want joint pain. That would be a big no-no. It's inevitable that you're going to have some, but I definitely want to stress that by no means do you need to have chronic joint pain. Acute, because you had a really hard session one time, is very different than constantly redlining, HIIT workouts, and then your knees are shot, but yet you still show up to the next day. I can't go, no pain, no gain. Right? Soreness in the muscle is very different than soreness in the joints, right? A hard workout can be effective, but suffering does not need to be an inevitable part of it. You can have a little bit of soreness. What's cool is the more you work out, the less you feel sore anyway. You'd be sore after a marathon. Do you really think you built muscle? That's my favorite analogy. The truth is that adaptation happens when training Stress is matched with the right amount of recovery. More is not always better. Better is better. A smart plan uses some progressive overload, appropriate volume, and good exercise selection to deliver results gradually over time. Strength coaches and professional personal trainers, professional, not just a weekend warrior personal trainer, quote unquote personal trainer who's never coached somebody one-on-one. And then coaches who just work with general population for years, not just athletes who are on social media. These are the types of people you want to work with. And it might seem boring, but it's the boring stuff that works. Why does it seem boring? Because you're doing the same thing for 4 to 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks. People who brag and programs that brag about crushing people, that you're going to be crazy sore after, that it's entertainment, that you're not going to get bored, that it's a different workout every day, P90X, that's a red flag to watch out for, right? Beginners doing 6 boot camp classes a week. CrossFit, F45, Orange Theory, I would never recommend a beginner to go to any of those. If that's what gets them in the door, because it's group fitness, great, but you definitely want to be working with somebody one-on-one. Maybe it's that you work with someone one-on-one for 6 months and then you go to that, you're going to have such a better base, right? And people who are chasing the soreness because they think that that's actually what works, they get stuck in that recovery trap rather than adaptation. You can recover from the workout, doesn't mean you're going to adapt to it because you went so hard, your body has to focus on recovery, not necessarily adaptation. And we talk about recovery and adaptation as if they're the same thing, but they are a little different. Adaptation means next time you come back, you're stronger. Recovering means you've just at least got back to baseline. Now, great coaches know the difference and they know how much dose to affect because they've been measuring it week after week, applying just a little bit more because your body gets stimulated to the previous dose. And you know when to push, you know when to pull back, especially given circumstances like a lack of sleep, extra stress, extra activity. And it can be difficult to learn somebody's body right away. That's why you go extra easy at the start and then you build up a little bit more. You're looking for the minimum effective dose to give the most results, right? It's way more sustainable. And guess what? Then you just have to add a little bit more next week. Going for the maximum effective dose might give you a little bit more results in the short term, but it might be a detriment in the long term. Another thing most people fall out of is motivation. I'm not motivated to work out. Cool. It's not always motivating to work out. Sometimes it's about building discipline. It's about building habits. And it sounds appealing, but it's not what's going to get you into the long term. Motivation can be very short term, but the intrinsic is long term, which is very much a discipline standpoint, right? Motivation's unreliable. It rises and falls, right? When you're sleeping bad, when you have high stress, big workload, lots of family, maybe different hormones and mood, you will have less motivation. And if your whole plan depends on feeling a certain way, your plan is weak. When have you ever been like, oh, I don't feel like going to work? And yet you still have to go to work because you know the consequences if you don't go to work. What are the consequences if you don't get your workout in? One time, not a big deal. Over the course of months, high risk of injury, body composition changing, mood changing, and getting setbacks. Again, it is nuanced. I think motivation can be jet fuel, but you can't rely on jet fuel the whole time. It burns up quick. And you need to, while you're in that exit philosophy, learn how to get to the gym without needing motivation. What's really important is coaches who work on behavior change, psychologists, veteran trainers who understand adherence, general friction to and resistance to change, and human inconsistency. So this is where all or nothing people tend to fly and die, right? And you might feel like you're lazy, but in reality, you just haven't learned how to be disciplined enough. And it does take some time. The person who starts a 75-day challenge full of fire that disappears because it was too extreme. That makes sense, all or nothing. You need to be working with a coach. No coach would ever put you on a 75-day challenge. 75 hard, I believe, is what it's called. The client who succeeds because meals were prepped, workouts were short, and gym clothes were packed before the night. That makes so much more sense. Short workout is done. It's infinitely better than no workout. And then the difference between being inspired for a week and being organized for a year. That's a big difference. Biohacking beats the basics. Obviously, this is a big cliche. Trust me, I love to learn about these interesting biohacks. I want to learn about the ones that are easy wins. Maybe it's taking a cold shower to help wake yourself up in the morning. That's great. You know what else is going to help me wake up in the morning? Go to bed on time. But in moments when a pinch where maybe I didn't sleep the best, that might not be a bad idea, right? This is where most people try to optimize the last 3% while ignoring the first 97% of the results. Fancy tools can't recover poor sleep as much as just getting better sleep. Same thing with low protein or inconsistent training. Biohacking can have value for sure, but it's only after the basics are nailed, and then the basics 2.0, 3.0, 4.0. This is like the last thing. This is the icing on the cake. Not even that, it's the sprinkles on the icing. By the way, just as a side note, I fucking love icing. Buttercream icing has to be the best icing around. If you disagree, we can't be friends. So, again, who's qualified for biohacking? Not a lot of people. Biohackers. But you definitely want to avoid watching for expensive gadgets and gimmicks that are being sold. Are they really necessary? Right? Protocols that make people feel elite for avoiding the basics, and advice that sounds more like a product funnel than an actual health strategy. Now, what's interesting is like a glucose monitor that was originally designed for people with diabetics, but now people talk about how they can use it as biohacking. Cool, awesome. I don't think it's going to be that revolutionary changing. There's people who spend hundreds of dollars on red light therapy. Again, if you have the money, great. But most of us don't have that necessary income to just drop hundreds of dollars on something that maybe gets you an extra 1 or 2%. And yeah, you know what is a great biohack is the type of people who just walk more and lift 3 times a week and eat enough protein without actual hacks. They're going to get the best results because they actually do the hard work. Another one that has to talk about nutrition is carbs make you fat. And then it was fat that makes you fat. I bet you next time it's protein makes you fat. No. Eating too much over your calorie surplus too often without proper strength training is going to make you fat. Why does the strength training matter? Because if you overeat and you strength train, a good amount of that's going to get partitioned to building muscle. That's called bulking because you're building bulk of muscle. Now, carbs themselves aren't fattening, right? Overeating calories constantly, again, without strength training or just training in general, can make you gain body mass, right? Maybe some people perform better with high carbs, some people perform better with low carbs, some people perform better with high fat, some people prefer better with low fat. You know what almost always has to be moderate to high is protein. So as long as you hit your protein, whatever the rest of your carbs make up, great. Or your fat, great. Most people probably wouldn't be amazing with low fat, but you probably can be moderate carbs up to moderate low, up to high. It really depends on who you feel. There's going to be times where maybe you want to go into ketosis, but you don't have to live in ketosis all the time. You don't need to fear it. Now, there are different examples of good carb sources and bad carb sources. I think you know the difference between a good and bad carb that I don't need to explain it, except I need to explain it. Very simple. If it comes from nature, it good. If it come from not nature, it not so good. Fruit, vegetables, pumpkin, sweet potato, nature, yay. Rice, technically nature, not the end of the world. Not so good carb, donut. And I get pushed back on that with Sarah Boomer, because she likes her donuts and she's listened to a couple podcasts. It's not the best carb in the world. One donut's not going to make you fat. And guess what? There's also a decent amount of oil in the in the donut as well. Like, it's not just carbs. But yeah, donut, not so good. And so when people say, oh, I cut out carbs, they really just mean they've cut out refined processed sugars, but you don't need to fear an apple. An apple a day keeps the doctor at bay. All right. Another one is listening to your body. It sounds appealing. It sounds wise, intuitive, and self-aware. It gives people permission to slow down and trust themselves. However, most people don't even know what their body's telling them. Most people, when they do a bench press, which is supposed to be chest and triceps, they're like, I feel it in my biceps. Okay, well, you don't know how to listen to your body then, right? Most people, maybe they're very fatigued, bored, anxious, soreness, they feel lazy, they feel stressed, they feel hunger. Maybe they just haven't slept the best. And all of that can come from just not the best night of sleep. Listening to your body is a skill. It's not a slogan. It works best when you have paired objective markers, training logs, a watch, food journal, performance trends, sleep quality, and honest pattern recognition. And experienced coaches can balance that with data, with their wisdom, and with their clients actually say to help their clients tune into their body even more. People use the listen to your body to justify inconsistencies, to avoid rigid plans, and to ignore real pain and recovery signals alike. So the person who skips every workout because they don't feel like it, oh, I'm listening to my body. Dude, if you listen to your body, do you think you would not eat donuts all day? Again, I'm going to pick on donuts. The person who trains through warning signals because they are scared of being judged due to injury. That's very different. That's the other spectrum, right? And then there's a client who learns to separate fatigue from resistance, and they get resilient and they get far more consistent. Again, some clients, they're in a gentle stretch. Ooh, this hurts. Or, oh, it hurts? Or is it a stretch? And they're like, well, no, it's a stretch. I'm like, don't tell me it hurts then. You are not in pain, right? Use that when it's actually in pain. Let's do one more. This is a very common one. Lifting heavy makes women bulky. Couldn't be further from the truth. There's a long-standing fear and outdated messaging here. Most women do not want to look like a man. Most. Or a stereotypical man, I guess. And most women, almost all women, don't accidentally build large amounts of muscle. It's very hard to build muscle. Most men don't accidentally build large amounts of muscle, let alone over one workout. They think lifting heavy builds muscle. It does. So does lifting light for multiple reps. Resistance training is one of the best tools for shaping the body, but depending on how you do your resistance and strength training, you will get different adaptations. Even then, they say, well, I don't want to be bulky, but I want to be toned. You have to build muscle to be toned. That's a made-up word. It takes you so much time to build muscle. You won't just wake up overnight and be like, oh, I'm too muscular. That's a good problem. If you ever feel like you're too muscular, you can back off the weights. I've never had that problem with any client in 8 years of training that a woman has been like, oh, our workout yesterday, Nick, built way too much muscle. Now I look like a man and bulky. I've never had that before. That would be amazing. It doesn't work like that. It takes months and years to build a decent amount of muscle. And even then, most of the women are like, actually, I kind of like the muscle. I kind of like being strong. And so resistance training is one of the best things to shape the body, improve bone density, raise confidence, support the metabolism, support the hormones. And most people, when they say they want to be toned, they just want to build a little muscle and reduce a little bit of body fat. The thing is, when they say don't want to be bulky, it's that they don't want the body fat. And you know what the best tool for that is? Strength training. And then coaching through the diet to help with body composition. And that's it. And any woman who does bodybuilding shows would 1,000% agree. Now, maybe in there, they have an argument for, oh, my coach thinks I need a different symmetry. Cool, awesome, not talking to you. I don't even know if any woman who does bodybuilding shows listens to this show. If you do, shoot me a message. That'd be kind of cool. But programs built around tiny weight, endless reps, and fear-based language, those are not good. You don't fall for them. You shoot me a message. I will take care of you. I will help you out to the best of my ability. But yeah, there's so many women who avoided lifting for years, worried that they're going to look manly in a dress, which, if anything, you look great in it. And then, again, there's a lot of social medias before and afters that show quote unquote toning because Jen did this program, when in reality, Jen was just in a calorie deficit and did tons of cardio, and that's how she lost weight. But she had a decent amount of muscle before. That's why she looks like she has muscle. You need to have that muscle first before you can get to that level. Okay. That's pretty good. It's a long podcast today. I'm just going to end it there because I got a client soon. I got one more, and I'm just going to do this one quick. Cardio is best for fat loss. It's not. End of story. All right. Until next time.